We want to talk about the current weather conditions, weather patterns, and joining me in studio to do this are two men who understand exactly what's going on. Let me start from the far right there, where we have Samuel Mwangi, who's the Deputy Director, Kenya Meteorological Department. Welcome to the program.
Thank you.
And right here next to me is Geoffrey Wahungu, the Director General of NEMA. Welcome to the program as well.
Thank you.
Let me start with you, Bwana Mwangi. You issued a heavy rain advisory, at least I saw one yesterday, so I trust it was issued yesterday, with its validity set for the 16th to the 19th of March 2018. I want our viewers to understand what Kenyans can expect from that, because of that advisory, between today until the 19th. Maybe we can start the discussion there.
I think we need to start with the advisory was issued much earlier. This was kind of an update.
Sort of an update.
Yeah.
Okay, okay.
Yeah, because you remember this rain started almost at the beginning of the month. And we had even issued an alert about that heavy rainfall that began almost at the beginning of this month. But subsequently, we've issued updates. And the last one being yesterday, where we were seeing continuation of the rains, but not maybe as intense as what was experienced yesterday.
Okay.
So we should see kind of a slight reduction in the intensities of the rainfall that we've been receiving in the last few days.
Would you say that yesterday's rainfall was the most intense we've seen? Or
for Nairobi, definitely this was the most intense we've seen.
Okay.
Yeah, and it rained in a short period, maybe 2-3 hours.
It was 2-3 hours, yes.
And caused quite a lot of devastation.
Okay.
Yeah.
In that same update, you also told Kenyans or gave them instructions about what to be on the lookout for, what to be careful about. Do you mind just summarizing them?
There are many things to be on the lookout for. Basically, you see that anytime there is flooding, people tend to be a little bit, let me call it careless.
Sorry?
There's this false security when you're inside a vehicle that you can virtually pass through anything.
Anything.
And that's not true. Water can actually wash away even moving vehicles. Once the water gets above the hub of the wheel, the vehicle starts floating and it can easily be rolled over and swept away.
Okay.
These are some of the things that people need to be careful about.
Okay.
Wading through running water. Once the water hits your knees, can knock you down, and drowning can result. The other things we see is that people also need to be careful about contamination of particularly water sources during this time. Because with this kind of flooding, sewage, pit latrines overflow into the water sources. And this can be a cause of infections and diarrheal diseases.
Okay.
Yeah, so there are a number of
things that you'd like, and I know we did broadcast that yesterday. Finally, are you frustrated by the fact that you warned Kenyans about this? Your warning went from national government to the counties, and yet yesterday it's like we woke up surprised. My goodness, it's raining, and yet you've been singing this song for the better part of the month.
I wouldn't call it frustration. I think there's always a running cycle in some of these things. When things happen, I think even the best prepared plans sometimes can go wrong.
Okay.
I think we know even the superpowers, the US, it was caught flat-footed by Cyclone Katarina some years back. This is a superpower in terms of preparedness, early warning, but still it caused quite a lot of devastation.
Okay.
So really, the kind of intensities we saw yesterday morning, the disruption in traffic, erosion of our road embankments, all this really couldn't have been foreseen. Okay. And therefore the disruption of traffic really was inevitable.
Okay. Let me bring in Director General Wahungu into this conversation as well. You had a press briefing yesterday, and you talked about current environmental incidents due to flooding. What sort of reports are you getting? You have teams both in Nairobi and across the country. What are they telling you?
Thank you, Ahiga. Within the short period, 3 hours of rain for yesterday, and particularly in Nairobi, the reports we are receiving are, let me say, not surprising, because except that they were of high intensity within such a short period of time, which was a little surprising to us. But I think we were fearing for more than we actually got.
You thought it could have been worse?
It could have been worse, because
I wonder what worse would have looked like.
Because I think that by and large, a lot of Kenyans took the warning from the weatherman seriously, because where we did the press briefing yesterday, the small stream Kirishwa Kubwa, that was really swollen. And we were considering now you have all the tributaries going and now forming River Athi. And you can see it broke the bridge at Ntomawe.
Yes.
And then broke Mombasa Road traffic or a small up, and it had to be shut down by Kenha. So in the past, when we have such a serious devastation and such serious flooding, we have had many more lives lost, and I think this is proven. We were also monitoring what kind of debris is being brought into the river by the floods. Mwangi has talked about contamination of water, but what we discovered yesterday, we were monitoring particularly plastic bags and bottles.
What plastic bottles? That's
Yeah,
to bring, yes.
and that brought an interesting observation from that. But by and large, other than roads and whatever, we didn't receive any reports of massive landslides that we have had in the past. I'm not saying we are yet through that, but mudslides this year, we haven't, I think we are a bit lucky, other than on the roads and embankments, as has been said. Massive landslides in rural areas, we have not received
At
any
least have not been seen so far.
Yeah.
Have you identified certain areas as flooding zones that you can say when you look across the country, X, Y, Z, are potential flooding zones when it rains to this magnitude?
Yeah.
Just mention one or two.
One of the most common ones that we know and which we expect and which we prepare for is the area between Mai Mahiu and Narok.
Okay.
That floodplain, because of massive degradation in the area, mainly from activities like sand harvesting, the volcanic activities and faulting that usually takes place there, especially faulting and movement of large masses. We also have sections of Mombasa Road, like Athi River. And yesterday we saw the same thing happening. There are other sections, for example, along large rivers in Baringo. We still haven't seen large reports from that, mainly because I think rain was much more concentrated in the central region.
Okay,
Yeah.
okay. And I want to get into the discussion about plastic waste. Some Kenyans have gone online. Okay, first of all, the rains have obviously revealed that Nairobi has a plastic waste problem. Specifically now, plastic bottles. You've cracked down on plastic bags. What we are seeing, and we saw them in different media houses yesterday, were just images of plastic bottles all over the place. Some are saying maybe it's time for a ban on those. That if we had cut back on the plastic bottles, we might not have seen some of the images. Yes, let's talk about what you're doing to tackle that. And I mean, okay, look at that, for example. That is just unbelievable. You can imagine, you know, we're looking at those shots that are on the screen as well. Let me get your thoughts on that.
That Wahiga was a very interesting observation. We are monitoring the debate. I think by and large, the time we did the carrier bags ban, we knew at the time that plastic bottles was also a problem.
Okay.
But we considered the economic impact of going for both and chose to
especially at the same time.
Yeah, especially at the same time, and gave opportunity for manufacturers and users of the bottles to come to us with a plan of management and reduction of them, especially the take-back scheme. At some stage, you know, immediately after the ban, there was a bit of controversy and people are apprehensive about our intention to ban or to manage or to control. But I think after yesterday, I think the debate is large and it's there for the public to guide. You know, public opinion is quite important in the way government works also.
Okay.
But I think we are still of the opinion that the government has a strategy of managing plastic bottles. The partners have assured us, and we have been saying this, but come April 1, which is very soon now, we are going to see a practical approach that an elaborate take-back scheme on plastic bottles. But Wahiga, as you saw, we have indicated in our opinion that we need to deal with the plastic bottles now that we have sort of done away with the bags and their menace.
Okay.
So we are open, our minds are open, but first we want to see the opportunity that we have given, the negotiations that have long been ongoing and that have soon expected to come to fruition
with
on April.
These manufacturers.
Yes,
okay.
we would like to see whether that can work. Let's Kenyans remember that this flooding is an episode that happens every year and that we are now enjoying, let me say we have started enjoying the ban on the plastic carrier bags. Can we enjoy, if we try give a shot at take-back scheme and management of bottles before the ban.
Take-back is you drop the bottles off at recycling centers, or?
Yes, you take, or we put a fee onto it so that it can actually be sold and recycled, so that we attach a monetary value to it, or we take it back to the source or recycle it to a different product. Let's see whether that can work.
Okay. Let me bring in the Deputy Director. You said that even the best laid plans of men sometimes go wrong. But according to Nairobi Governor Mike Mbuvi Sonko, he's even apologized to Kenyans, Nairobians specifically. He's telling them, Pole sana, you know, we have dropped the ball on this one. Again, I ask, and this might seem repetitive, if county governments had taken your warning more seriously, couldn't more have been done? I think that's the question that I saw. And yesterday there was a lot of uproar online that if a tourist came into Kenya yesterday and landed at 7 o'clock at JKIA, what sort of picture would they have seen of our capital city?
Of course, we could have done better. Let me put it like that. Because you look at the situation, like the disruption. Cross-monitoring would have avoided some of the things that we experienced yesterday. But having said that, yesterday I don't think we lost any rifle in Nairobi. No rifle was reported.
But we lost property.
We lost property.
Man hours.
And things like that. And that's a plus, because often we hear people have been swept away, even in Nairobi. The low-lying areas, unfortunately, all our informal settlements are in the low-lying areas.
Okay.
Look at all of them, Mathare, Mukuru, series of slums.
But I would say we were lucky.
They are all on the banks of Nairobi River.
True.
And this river must have broken its bank yesterday with the kind of rains that we received. So people are really prepared. The common man there knew that things were not good, because social media also at this point in time is up there. People are really exchanging texts, WhatsApp messages, and this information is down with the people. And this actually, I believe, is what saved the situation, in the fact that people were really prepared at an individual level to cope with the kind of situation that we experienced yesterday.
Okay. Let me allow our viewers to weigh in on this discussion. 22422 is our SMS line. What are your thoughts about the aftermath of the heavy rains, preparedness of county governments, because we are seeing this across the country? Let us know. 22422 is our SMS line. And you can talk to us on social media as well. Use the hashtag #CitizenExtra, and I'll be glad to read some of your feedback. Deputy Director, so what next in terms of weather patterns? How far ahead can you forecast? And so what can Kenyans expect for the next 4 months? Help us understand.
Basically, we are now in the rainfall season. This is just the beginning of the long rain season. This season runs from March to May. So we expect the rains to continue over most places between now and May.
Okay.
But the heaviest rainfall should be received in the central parts of the country, going to the Rift Valley, Western Kenya, and what used to be called Nyanza province. So those are the areas that are expected to receive heavy rainfall.
Okay.
The rest of the country, including the northeastern parts of the Ukambani counties, they will receive rains in the early part of the season, but later on we should see that area receiving reduced amounts of rainfall.
Okay.
So this is the kind of general forecast for the season.
You know, the other discussion... Sorry, go ahead.
But if we look at the foreseeable future, maybe the next 5 days or so, we expect that the rains will reduce in intensity for the next 2-3 days, increase a little bit next week.
So on Monday, Tuesday, we could have...
we could have a surge in terms of...
I hope county governments are listening to this.
In terms of intensity.
Yes.
But the weekend, we will see a kind of reduced intensities in terms of rainfall.
I feel like people will relax over the weekend, then wake up on Monday and it's madness all over again. The governor of Nairobi and many people have alluded to the fact that we seem to have contrasts in Kenya, where you have periods of very heavy rainfall and then dry seasons after that. What do you see in terms of your forecast? Do we have a dry season coming up anytime soon? And how can we be more aware of that?
That's the general patterns of Kenyan weather.
Of Kenyan weather,
Remember January, February, we were complaining of no water.
It feels like it was just the other day.
Yeah, and that's hardly even 2 weeks ago. Come to think of it.
It's actually just about 2 weeks ago.
Yeah.
Yes.
And the situation was very, very bad, very dry. Everybody was complaining about dust. Now we are complaining about water everywhere. The sad thing is that all this water is running off into the Indian Ocean. And 3 months down the line, we'll go back to the same cycle of a long dry period from about June to October.
June to October, 4 months, so 5
4
months.
months of no rains, basically. And by the time we get the short rains, which come in October, we'll be complaining of a very, very dry period. And it's sad that we don't harvest enough of our rainfall, because this would really take us far. And going forward, I believe this is one way where we can be able to save ourselves a lot of headache. Because some of our resources are finite, we must recognize that. Be it forests, be it land, be it even water, these resources are finite. They can't expand. We must use what we have to the best of our capabilities.
Okay.
Reuse, recycle, and all those things that Professor here will be in
In
a
fact,
better
I'll give him a
position to
chance
talk
to add his voice on the same. Professor and the Director General of NEMA, you can just weigh in. You can give you a chance to respond to some of the things he said. The challenge that we find ourselves almost fortunate that after crying about a drought, we have a lot of water now in the country, but no one's quite sure about the water plan. The Nairobi governor has confessed that we are working on a water harvesting plan, but clearly it has not been put into place. Let me get your thoughts on recycling and conservation.
Yeah, there's Wahiga to the Ministry of Environment. All the agencies, it's something like bittersweet. We are very excited about the opportunity to have rains because this is the planting season. The Cabinet Secretary launched the tree planting season for this year. And on 21st, we celebrate the World Forest Day. And therefore, as we are facing floods and all that, other than what Mwagi has said, that we always lose this opportunity to harvest water, to us it's also an opportunity for counties, because right now, actually, we are at a stage where we are almost finalizing the National Environment Management Authority and counties, the preparation of county environment action plans. And these action plans actually talk about exactly the same things we are discussing here. How do we mitigate against these episodes of flooding? What are the opportunities, particularly in saving of water, harvesting of water, and also what lessons do we learn and plan and be able to plan our cities for the future based on the flood episodes? So these environment action plans are supposed to be implemented to the fullest. They are supposed lessons learned from us, activities coming out of there, long-term strategies on how to get out of that. They are actually coming, and we are devolving them from the National Environment Action Plan, which, of course, we implement, but because of sources and the devolution, is then supposed to be interpreted and cut into pieces depending on the circumstances of the counties, and they take them up. Take, for example, what we are seeing with the plastic bottles, for example, all waste being swept and taken into rivers. We were discussing yesterday and saying counties to come and actually take that opportunity and mop up,
And collect them.
because it's already been brought together.
Yes.
We don't have to wait for it to go to the oceans to pollute there. And therefore, these are many opportunities for counties to learn and to come up with practical solutions to these menace, so that we can tap it into an opportunity rather than disasters that we see every year.
Okay. A viewer is actually asking a question. I don't know if this question should be to you or to someone from the county government. They are saying, hi, I'm wondering if there are plans to clean up all the plastic we are seeing on social media. I really hope so. Is there a plan? Who would drive that plan? Would it be your body? Would it be the county government? Is that something we need?
We have already discussed it yesterday. It happened at the time that we were meeting all the county environment officers in Naivasha with NEMA on the county environment action plans and other works we are doing together. We had also the Cabinet Secretary and ourselves, all the CEOs from the ministries, agencies. We met the Council of Governors, and issues on these mop-ups came up, the support they need from us, and we agreed on these issues. Yesterday, we agreed to fast track, and therefore, from today, we are expecting to see actions, especially in Nairobi and other cities that are, and other towns that are on the Athi catchment, and other big rivers, of mop-up of the plastic that has been left in the floodplain before another episode now comes and moves those plastic away. And we are the ones spearheading the coordination and that talking, but the activity and the action, the mobilization and the act of collecting and tucking them away to dump sites and to recycling centers, That is for the county government.
Okay. Allow me to interrupt you there because I want to bring in the governor of Machakos County, Dr. Alfred Mutua. Dr. Mutua, I trust you can hear me?
Yes, I can hear you very well. Habari asubuhi.
Salama kabisa. I hope all is well. I know Machakos County has borne the brunt of these heavy rains.
Yeah, it's been a bit tough. Now, we must make swimming lessons compulsory.
Okay, that's right. Let me get an update. First things first, the status of Mombasa Road, specifically at Athi River, where a bridge was submerged in water following heavy rains. What's the status there? What's happening there right now?
The bridge is open. What we did is that our engineers and other engineers worked overnight, and we were able to rectify the area of the bridge that had actually been washed away. And we put a band-aid on it, and now traffic is flowing very well. They were also able to stop the other bridge in Kangundo Road from being washed away. We worked on it also. So traffic is flowing on both ways. But the waters are still heavy, and we're expecting more rainfall later on this afternoon.
It was reported that your teams rescued about 50 people. What is their status right now?
Everybody's okay. Thank God, they're in an estate and areas where we've been able to support each other. We had challenges in a place called Katani, whereby people are actually standing on top of their roofs because the water had really risen. But we're able to coordinate with the local provincial, the former provincial administration, with the chiefs, my team, and everybody's safe. We do not have loss of life, only that most of the livestock has gone with water, cuckoo, goats, and quite a number of cows have been lost.
Okay, it's positive here that no one lost their lives. Let's talk about an estate like Green Park Estate. Has your team been able to gauge the extent of damage there?
We cannot say, before I answer that, we cannot say that people did not lose their lives. We are getting reports that there's a lady who was washed away yesterday.
Oh.
And this morning we recovered 3 bodies at the river area of Kamulu Bridge off of Kangundo Road. So we don't know where the bodies came from because they might just have come from as far as Kajiado or Nairobi because of the waters. But so the police are handling that, and we are still looking and trying to ascertain whether we've got any missing people.
Okay.
So, this was more like a flash flood, like what we saw in Europe the other day. It is not a matter of being prepared or not being prepared. This is just a river bursting its banks and a river becoming a lake in a few hours. And then, because when I went to the bridge, and I could tell the water was rising, but within half an hour, the water was on top. I mean, like an hour ago, there was nothing. An hour later, there's flooding everywhere. A few hours later, the water has subsided. So it's more of a flash flood. It is not an issue of preparedness or anything. It's one of those freaks of nature.
Okay.
In terms of the houses, the water subsided. It's a private house, a private community, so I think they'll be able to take care of themselves. I'm concerned about their welfare. I think they should be okay. We may have to rethink how close we need to be when it comes to constructing houses near rivers. They are not on the riparian. They actually have obeyed the law. They are not on the riparian. They are away from the riparian area. This has never happened before, so they have actually followed the law. So they have not built on the river riparian. It's only that the waters actually flowed long distances. When you've got a river flowing for 300-400 meters, that's a significant distance.
Okay, Governor, thank you for that update. Very sad to hear about those who lost their lives. Our condolences to their family and friends at this moment. Finally, now that you've seen what happens in your county and some of the patterns, what sort of long-term plans are you thinking you quickly need to put into place? You've now seen what happens at that river. The banks can quickly be, some overflowing can happen. It can cross up. We can see water moving to some of those estates. What are you beginning to think about in terms of long-term measures?
Well, we're looking at, we already have a very effective emergency and rescue service. I think Machakos has the best emergency response system where our fire engines and ambulances are able to respond within 5 minutes or so. We've got diverse, operations, and we've got emergency services all over the county. I think the thing is to be able to issue early warning. What I'm seeing here is for our country to have an early warning system so that when there is flooding that is happening, we see in Isinya, in Kajiado, as far as, where the river starts filling up in Nairobi, we should be able to track and tell people that in another 4 hours, it's going to break its banks so that we can prepare in advance. So it's that early warning system that is critical so that people do not have to drown, so that people know we can shut the roads early, 2 hours before the floods come. We can do everything to save lives, because at the end of the day, it's not about houses. It's about saving lives.
Finally, Governor, the weatherman, and we actually have the Deputy Director of the Kenya Met Services here. He tells us that the rain intensity will reduce into the weekend, but we could see some sort of intensity back again on Monday, Tuesday next week. Now, short-term measures, very quickly, what are you thinking? You have an emergency response team. What else do you think you can do to protect the people of your county?
Well, we're educating our people. We will move our people away where we'll do a mapping. I've told my team to do mapping so that we know the areas that are in danger, and we'll work with the Met Department and also with NEMA so that we can identify areas that may be of concern. Actually, our biggest problem is, I think there was a car last night that was being washed away, is motorists not listening to advice. They just think, mimi ni mwanaume, hii maji kidogo nitapita. And then the water goes away, and then now you've got missing people. So, it's about people using common sense and listening to authorities. So we'll map, we'll be able to forewarn people, we'll work closely with the Met Department so they can be able to give us that early warning system so that we can be able to save lives.
Thank you so much, Governor. I know you need to get into meetings and discuss with your team all the things you're telling us here on air. We can release you at this moment. Thank you for finding a few minutes to talk to us. Dr. Alfred Mutua, the Governor of Machakos County. Gentlemen, I can give you a chance to respond. He's talked about various issues specific to his county, but I think lessons can be learned for the rest of the country. Let me get reactions from both of you. Deputy Director Mwangi, I can start with you. I saw you noting one or two things. Maybe you can bring us into that conversation.
Basically, I think what Dr. Alfred Mutua has mentioned is key. We have issues of early warnings. An early warning should be an integrated system. It starts with the weather and the climate forecasts, the monitoring. And monitoring here can be issues to do with monitoring of the situation on the ground, the water channels. Are they blocked? Do we have debris that can be cleared before the rains become heavy? Then there is also, like in this case, monitoring of deliverables, which is the mandate of the Ministry of Water. So we need to be able to integrate this system in a way such that when things reach a critical point, then you can be able to issue an alert and warn people to move away from the banks in good time so that we save lives, we save property, and also secure our environment. Because the biggest problem maybe which people are not seeing is the environment, the damage to the environment.
Which we're not even costing it.
Which we are not even costing.
Which we should, yes.
Which we should. Because you can imagine the kind of water we are seeing, the kind of soil that is being taken away, the topsoil. This is the fertile soil that supports agriculture, but this is being eroded and taken away into the Indian Ocean. The losses in terms of that are heavy.
Director General, your thoughts on the same, your reaction to what the governor has shared about Machakos County and its environs?
I appreciate very much the intervention of the governor yesterday. We saw him issuing an alert and updating everyone about what has happened. He has also brought in a very important point, which we were going to get about later, now about the riparian, encroachment on riparian areas. We have laws and rules that we try to enforce. The difficulty we get a lot is people who show impunity. 2 years ago, we had a very similar episode like what is happening. Some houses collapsed on riverbanks and all that.
Yes.
We had an interagency team that went around identifying all areas, because we have many, for example, institutions that enter through the licensing regime. We had hoped that that report will be implemented and that some of those houses will be brought down. We've got into a lot of court cases and other impediments that are into that. But even now, going forward, you can see that the estate, Green Park Estate, is not sitting on the riparian zone. They have observed the riparian zone.
You've gone and observed, and you can confirm that it's not on the riparian.
No, we are the ones who licensed.
You're the one who licensed it. Fantastic.
So we know.
Yes.
But now, what are we seeing? Water has still gone out, which means that these rules are not foolproof. What happens in the catchment can actually affect the amount of water that is actually coming. Yeah, and therefore that it is not a rule of the dam, and it's no security that if you have kept 6 meters for a small river or 30 meters for a large river, there is no guarantee that the river will not overflow and even go beyond those banks. So there's still, even when you are obeying the law, there's still caution that something wrong can go on, or even that the river can break its banks, because even the planning of Nairobi, let's say for example, some of the areas where we had a certain percentage of the plot size being left for green, where water would percolate, we have had changes of use, and then these house areas are becoming high density living areas. The areas in Upper Hill, Kileleshwa, Lavington, everywhere now, the change of user keeps encroaching because there is need for housing more people in Nairobi. Flats are coming,
many high-rise buildings, yes,
and more concrete space, which means that all the water that was percolating, and there's more roof, all that water is going into the streams and waterways, and therefore increasing the volume.
Do you feel that a body like yours needs the power to investigate and arrest lawbreakers, that this could strengthen what you're doing? We had a proposal late last month, I believe, by Environment and Forestry CS,
yes.
Keriako Tobiko. He was proposing changes to the environment law to give agencies such as yours the power, so that, you know, hopefully you can get greater, your ability to deal with impunity in regards to this can be strengthened. Do you think that would help?
If we were a one-stop shop, for example.
Exactly. Okay, exactly. You put it in a very simple word.
That would make it very easy, and we are hoping that can happen.
Okay. Okay. Let me come back to you, Deputy Director. Even as we wrap up this discussion, I want to get your thoughts on the conversation that we had before the rains came upon us, which was the drought and tree cover, forest cover. How would you say that weather patterns have been affected by the reduction in forest cover? There's been an argument in the country over whether our forest cover is 7%, 5%. Others are saying we are 1.7%. All I know is that when I go onto Google Maps and take a look at what is hopefully a real-time image of Kenya, it looks very dry. Talk to us about the weather and the forest cover and the linkage, just to hammer that point home from where you sit.
The climate system, what I will call the climate system,
yes,
includes many, many things. One of it is the environment. The environment here can be the land cover. This will be swamps, forests, and so on. And these interact with the atmosphere to give us our climate system. So when you change our land cover, of course the feedback into the atmosphere changes totally. You clear your forests, you change things. And this affects not just the rain-bearing mechanisms, it also affects how the rainfall that falls behaves. When you have cleared our forests, these rains that come down quickly convert into stream flow. And stream flow is what we are seeing being dangerous in parts like Narok. A lot of water coming in short periods, overwhelming the natural river channels and causing a lot of devastation. If you have adequate forest cover, this arrests the rainfall, and rainfall tends to percolate into the ground. And it also produces another effect that we notice much, much later when the rains have stopped. This water that percolates into the ground is slowly released into the streams, and our river levels remain high even during the dry season. But when you clear our forest, this water runs quickly into the streams, runs down the streams in the Indian Ocean, and our streams, once the rain stops, fall down very quickly. And we remain with the trickles where we used to have big rivers.
It makes a lot of sense.
And this is something we need to be able to look at.
Okay.
We need to reforest our degraded forest cover. We need to take the issue of land cover seriously. People draining swamps. Swamps are natural mechanisms, filtration mechanisms. And water that flows out of swamps is kind of filtered of many even chemicals, fertilizers, and so on. And you get better water downstream of the swamps. But we are now draining our swamps, making them agricultural areas.
We're victims of our own behavior and culture.
Yeah, of course. We have to strike a balance between our needs as human beings,
Okay.
and our environmental needs also.
Okay.
Because once we mess with the environmental needs, then the environmental services that accrue from our forests, our swamps, and so on will be reduced, and consequently we'll be the ones to suffer.
Okay. Yeah, I wanted to read some SMSs, then give you a chance to wrap up. In case any stand out, let me just read one or two that can give you a chance to wrap this up for us. Patrick Kimanzi from Wajir says, people are crying about rain. Here in Wajir town, hakuna. So he's trying to figure out what the discussion is. Somebody's asking, you don't give us your name, but you say, what synergies can be leveraged by different players in this ecosystem? NEMA, Met Department, we have both representatives here, county government, national government, okay. Another person here, I'm weighing in on the plastic bottles discussion. When I was young, we used to buy soda by exchanging an empty soda bottle for a full one made of glass. Can we explore that? And another person here says, it's not the rains that's the issue, it's the city council workers who dump all the roadside trash into the road gutters, which were built, a lot of them during our colonial days. The only easy task Kenyans are doing is to push aside rubbish into the gutters, which are now full to the brim, and then they bubble up when it rains. It is the same Kenya like we had many years ago, so we need to apportion blame to the right people on this particular matter. A very angry viewer. They've said a lot more, which I don't want to read on national TV. I can give you a chance to respond to one or two thoughts that have come up as I've read some of those SMSs, and of course to what he had to say as well.
I may not say why Wajir is not raining.
No, the ones that are relevant.
But the viewer who has weighed in on the debate on waste is on the spot about it. We have a national and county approach to this. We have a document. I think a lot of Kenyans, we try to say, but they didn't understand where the ban on plastics came from. In 2015, the NEMA rolled out a national solid waste management strategy for counties. And we started working the path with counties so that they can make action plans to implement the strategy. Among the biggest problem was plastic, both bottles and carrier bags. The decision we made was that let's do away with the plastic carrier bags so that the counties can find it easier to manage waste, and we did that. Let me say that we are very optimistic about the current crop of governors. On the onset, even before they settle down, they have already engaged us twice on issues of environment.
Okay.
They are very keen. You've seen some of them have already started even moving dump sites and managing waste. So we are optimistic, and I think it's a matter of time if what we are seeing goes through. On our part, other than, because I think now the problem is waste into the waterways, clogging drainages and bottles now. But I had already discussed what we would like to do, to be patient a bit with banning of PET, but also keeping our options open. Our next frontier as NEMA and the ministry, and we have already pronounced ourselves to that, are wetlands. We want to manage wetlands, encroachment. After plastics, now we are going to wetlands, manage and ensure that only trees that can conserve water and trees that are actually taking away too much water are removed from wetlands. The encroachment, annual burning and cultivation on wetlands is removed so that the wetlands can actually perform their ecological function.
Are you ready to deal with politically connected individuals who have built on some of those areas? Because that's been a key concern. That when your inspectors get there, someone makes a call somewhere and it becomes a complicated discussion.
Nobody would have thought that would have banned plastic carrier bags, but the time had come.
Okay.
And Kenyans supported us. I am not particularly concerned about what you are saying, because we have a wide range and these guys are few. Okay, they set an example because of this impunity, but they are few and far between. And as I had said, there are many issues I would like to see, like us being a one-stop shop to make that decision, which makes it easy. But when it's a multi-agency thing, then a lot of consultations happen.
It needs to take place.
Yeah, but I think we cross a bridge when we get there.
Okay.
We don't start to look at what might be the problem. We look for a good cause and go into it and then solve the problems as they come. And that usually is how government works. If you start foreseeing that there will be a problem, then you never get to start anything. And we are very committed to dealing with this encroachment on wetlands, both in the rural areas and in the town centers, so that we can make our waters start to be managed, to flow clean, and therefore we can have security with regards to quantity and quality of water.
Okay. I know I said I was on the last question, but let me get something from the Deputy Director. Someone has spoken about synergies being leveraged. Do you think the different agencies, NEMA, Met Department, County Government, National Government, are they working in an optimum as a manner as they should? Do you think more can be done? Someone here feels that more can be done, more different ways of working together.
We are working together. Let me start with that.
Okay.
But of course, more can be done. I think when you talk of synergies are as good as the relationships you have. And these relationships are built on the capacity you have, first of all. So if you don't have the capacity, the requisite capacity, then your synergies become weak. So we may be working together, but we could improve on capacity, how we interact with NEMA. Like we have collaboration in terms of monitoring some of the things. We work together with NEMA on that, but our capacity is still limited. So we could work at improving these capacities. At the counties, we are also working with the counties. We have our county directors of meteorology who are at most maybe 2 or 3 people per county. So that means that the capacity
vast areas
is not optimum.
Okay.
So if we could improve our capacity, then our synergies in terms of working together, implementing some of the programs would be better.
That would be better.
Yeah.
Let me read a quick SMS as we wrap up this discussion. Jerry here says, not only did it rain at my place on Saturday, it also there were hailstones. My gutters were full of hailstones. What can we do to avert these abnormal extremities? Is there anything we can do?
Really, there's very...
Can you stop the weather or change it?
No, I mean, at best we can forecast the weather.
At best you can forecast the weather?
Yeah, we can't alter anything. We are not rainmakers. We are forecasters.
Okay. One issue that we haven't discussed about weather, and this has been a big issue in other parts of the world. We've seen it in Beijing, pollution, fog, smog, and its effect on the weather. Let me get a brief comment from both of you on that. Where are we in Kenya? You had mentioned that's, I think the last time we hosted you, you mentioned that's something we might need to talk about. I can give you each a chance just to weigh in on pollution. Where are we? We have factories. We have industrial areas in almost every county coming down.
Yeah, pollution and
its effect, of course, on the weather.
And its effects, not just on the weather, and how it interacts with the weather is key. Because once you have a lot of pollution, this pollution, some of it is acidic. And when the rains come, what falls down becomes acidic rain. Acidic rain is corrosive. It harms crops, it harms people's roofs. You find that in some areas where you have a lot of industries, the tin roofs are corroded. They all appear brown.
That is a very scary thought, especially if you're trying to harvest that water.
And then it becomes a problem to harvest the water.
Yes.
So there is that interaction between the weather and pollution. The other thing we notice is that even in Beijing, when there is that smoke, they're actually praying for rain. Because when the rains come, the smoke clears.
Yes. Okay.
And people can breathe easy and all that. But we need to be careful in Kenya. We could be going towards that. Vehicular pollution is one big issue, which is not being tackled very effectively. We are not even, I believe, monitoring the kind of pollution we are experiencing in our big cities. And I think Beijing started where we are before they got to where
they are now.
I think the other place we saw sometime last year was Delhi in India, where people are being choked by this smoke to an extent that people would start vomiting on the streets. So this is something we need to think about
and really look at.
Plan ahead of maybe a precarious situation that may arise in the future.
Come in, DG, where are we? What statistics do you have, if any, on pollution?
Here we are talking about air pollution.
Air pollution.
Air pollution.
To be specific, yes.
Wahiga, you are right. You remember last time I was here about 2 months ago.
Yes.
I informed viewers that we are rolling out the air quality regulation, and I told you that it will be, and I see you remember that by the end of this year,
yes.
we already have rolled it out. It's a devolved function, and NEMA is going to be the standardization or central point of setting standards for especially pollution from mobile sources. For stationary sources, factories and all that, we are already monitoring, and we started in 2016 after the 2015 coming in of the regulation. So we work with the Kenya Met. I think some of the viewers, particularly if you are from Imara Daima, the river, and some parts in Naivasha, you've seen this truck which comes and stops for like a week or 3 days, monitoring, particularly where we have point sources, and we have made interventions based on that monitoring. Already, we test stack emissions for all factories and their annual audits. The challenge we are facing is, of course, already of what has been planned in some of the estates where the industrial area turned out to be mixed now of industries and settlement in some of the suburbs. But we want to ensure that standards are set.
Briefly, what might be some of the recommendations in 1 minute that might come out of this off the top of your head?
Is that as you bring your vehicle in Mombasa, we'll test it.
You'll test it?
Every year, it will be tested in your county to meet emission standards, which means that we bring vehicles and control their age. So you say you can't bring a vehicle for more than 8 years old, but after that, we never follow up to see who is polluting.
There are some vehicles I've seen on the road. I'm not an expert, but I can tell you, I doubt they will pass your requirement.
We started with the standards of the fuel. Remember, we have already removed lead from all the petrol and diesel petroleum products. We work with ERC and other government agencies with regard to this. So we started with clean fuels, and now we are going to the vehicles themselves. And by the end of this year, we want to work also with the NTSA. They have the network and the structure for testing, but because it's a devolved function, counties are going to give us who their elected centers are. And then we'll coordinate from a central point, and then at Mombasa as the vehicles come in.
I can clearly see that lives will be saved or lost depending on how NEMA carries out.
And there will be a public outcry as well. But we need to get that space, and we need the support of Kenyans. Because
I can imagine you telling Kenyans to give up their cars if they don't achieve some of the requirements. Thank you so much. We had Samuel Mangi here, Deputy Director, Kenya Meteorological Department, and of course Geoffrey Wahungu, the Director General of NEMA. Very interesting discussion, especially at a time like this. And we certainly hope stakeholders are listening at this very moment and will act on a lot of the things that we've discussed in this program.